Hello everyone and welcome to what is our final virtual talk about St. Bartholomew's Hospital in Rochester. So over the past week, Natasha from Creatabot and myself, George from Future Chatham, we've been really busy looking at the history and the important role of St. Bart's as the historic heart of health in Medway for over 900 years, caring for the local people during that time. So in today's session, we're really just looking to wrap up the project, reflect on its 900-year plus history and its role in the local area, but we'll also particularly be looking at its 900th anniversary, which was celebrated back in 1978. And that's where a special royal figure came along to celebrate the occasion as well. So sit back, enjoy, and I guess get some cake to celebrate the anniversary.
Yeah, that's it. Have a little virtual party. Why not?
And we look forward to taking you through our final talk for today. We'll kickstart off with I suppose the anniversary, the 900th anniversary, which was celebrated on 11th of May, if I'm not wrong, in 1978. And that was, of course, to celebrate the occasion of 900 years of St. Bart's. Because, of course, the original building was the first St. Bart's. The original one was in Chatham, not in Rochester, on the corner of High Street and Gundulph Road, just by where the chapel exists today. And that's, of course, the only medieval structure that remains. And you could see our first live talk about the medieval beginnings of the hospital. So from the hospital, of course, they built the new one that we all know today on New Road in Rochester. That was building began in 1861 and opened later on in 1863 on 10th of October, I think. So yeah, it's got a long history as a healthcare facility for the local area. And over those years, it has changed. I mean, facilities have come and gone. And of course, it did permanently close down in 2016, unfortunately. So we'll be looking at the anniversary, which happened then. And yeah, so we've got a few newspaper clippings and some photos, as well as a personal account from a staff member who was also at the occasion, because it was, of course, a huge event for the local area. And what was quite nice is actually the fact that the anniversary event began on the Thursday, which was the 11th of May, to mark the exact date for the occasion. And it continued for a few days afterwards, up until the Saturday, I think. And during that time, it was the St. Bartholomew's Association Friends Group. They had a nice big flower display over at the chapel, as well as the City of Rochester Society. They also had a photograph collection on the entrance to the hospital during that time period. So it's quite a big occasion, all sorts of events, celebration, dances, and cake, even with Gundulph on it. So Natasha, if you want to take us through, I suppose, a few of those things, and I'll just chip in as well with some of the information.
Right. Yeah, okie dokie. Let's bring up one of the main news articles. So this was from the Evening Post on Thursday, May the 11th. So came out the day it happened. Yeah, because it's the Evening Post. That'll be why. So they done an incredible cover story of the history of St. Bart's. Some amazing photos here as well, which this one's got the tram line in it, which is really interesting. Beautiful trees along New Road.
Yeah.
And then a photo of St. Bart's in 1978. And we particularly love this photo and would like a copy of it. So this was Gundulph Ward in the 70s. Here we go. Really interesting to see if all the old beds in there. So this article kind of covers the history of St. Bart's, which we've been going over this week, in terms of how St. Andrew's Priory was responsible for the kind of the care of the hospital, essentially, and providing them with food and funds to be able to look after patients. And then this also talks about the facilities that were available there Here it talks about surgery, general medicine, dermatology, neurology, physical medicine, ophthalmology, radiotherapy, plastic surgery, psychiatry, and diabetes. And it says there that last year, so 1977, 4,000 people were treated as inpatients and more than 1,334 patients received daycare, and more than 42,000 people were given outpatient treatment. That's incredible, isn't it?
Definitely. And of course, back in the medieval days and even the early beginnings of the new hospital in New Road, even then, of course, the hospital beds and the amount of patients they were treating were, probably definitely a lot smaller because of particularly, the limited staff they had at the time, at the beginning of it. And yeah, so over the years, it really has expanded and really did take an important role. And I think definitely the staff workforce, the community that was there providing that care for the patients, they were really outstanding. Definitely.
Yeah, it's very much around that whole person-centered care, which we've touched on a few times, haven't we, this week?
Yeah.
And it says here about how there was a royal visit, which I'll go on to. Is there anything else we want to bring out of this article first, though, before I do that?
I think what I'll do is I'll quickly bring up the lady who actually organised a lot of these celebrations.
That'd be good. Yeah, if you could do that, talk about the lady that organised the party.
Yes. So is this lady, not the actor at the top, but Miss Wally or Whaley, not quite sure, but she was pretty much responsible for a lot of the celebrations marking the 900th anniversary back in 1978. So that's a photo of her. And she was the sector administrator of St. Bart's, which was a new name given to the secretary at the time. And she was pretty much the mastermind behind all the preps and plans for the events. So many of the events were arranged for the events by her. And she was definitely part of arranging a service in Rochester Cathedral, which she scheduled, as well as a special flower display in the hospital chapel, which we just mentioned a few minutes ago, with the aid of the Friends group. And of course, this article is actually from 1977, a year before the events. So these are just discussing some of the plans that happen for the celebration next year. But yeah, there's also, of course, there we go, talk about some more tangible sort of events, particularly for the aid of the patients using the hospital. And it seemed like there was a lot of cross-working as well with other organizations locally to try and make this a really special event. And of course, the fact that it had gone on for 3 days, I think just goes to show what a event, and in a way it's like a St. Bart's festival almost. Yeah. I don't know if it was actually formally known as that at the time, but it definitely, in hindsight, looking back, it definitely seems like a really long fun event for all, and particularly the staff. And yeah, and even in the article, she even says, we hope that whatever they do will last for many years ahead in terms of the celebrations. So I think it really does go to show that they all had that sense of attachment to the hospital, that sense of community, and that pride in being part of its 900th year history. And I think particularly for even for those that did maybe like work placements for just a few days, like 4 days or 4 months, all sorts of time periods, I think for them it was really special, just being part of that history and providing that care for the local people.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like, fundraising has been at the core of this hospital for just forever, since its founding, basically. And so to put on an event and then use that as an opportunity for fundraising for more facilities in the hospital makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you use that kind of, it's great as a fundraising kind of prompt, the 900-year anniversary. And there's always these, you obviously get your general funding from the NHS, but there's always going to be bits that are missing, as we've seen recently, haven't we? So there's been a lot of fundraising for different things, whether that's for meals for the staff or activities for them, or there might be things needed that are just become aged, that it would be, be
Yeah.
good if it was replaced for patients. So
and even then, the hospitals always had that charitable character, even if it was 1948 taken up by the NHS. It's always had that charitable model and that outgoing sort of, to help the local people, to lend a hand, and the local people as well seem to really try their best as well to be part of that that story essentially of St. Bart's.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like that whole part of it being a community in itself, essentially. So as part of these wonderful celebrations, Princess Alexandra visited. I don't that basically, because of the archives being closed, our photos are not that great, as you can see, unfortunately. We will hopefully one day in the future we'll be able to bring those photos out. If anybody wants to see what Princess Alexandra looks like, then this would have been this is what her in 1978 visiting a school. So that's what you can imagine as we go through this essentially. So yeah, it says here that they initially met in the chapel for 2 p.m. and was greeted by Victor Upton, who was the chairman for the Kent Area Health Authority, and then went and saw the hospital staff. She had a tour of the chapel by the Reverend, and she then signed the visitor's book, and she was very touched to find an entry on the previous page by her father, Duke of Kent, who had died only a few years earlier in a military air crash. He'd visited 40 years ago to the day. I kind of meant that he died only a few years after. He died in 1942. 40 years later, she was there visiting the chapel and signing the book. And George Patterson, who was a senior nursing officer at St. Bart's, showed her to the hospital tennis courts, where there was a big crowd, which obviously was the perfect space for people to meet her, but in a contained area. And there was also Mrs. Mary Pratt, who was a nursing sister at the hospital in 1938, when her dad had indeed visited. She had been there for some time. And she also showed her photos of her dad visiting, which would be amazing if those photos are in existence somewhere. Somebody must have them. Be great to see if they can be found. This is an interesting little fact, though. It says that the photo shows her father standing next to a gate which had been specially cut into a wall for him to use. Has he demanded a special gate?
What's all that about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I presume it's something to do with having like a royal entrance, but then that doesn't seem to be the entrance that she used. So it'd be interesting to know why a special gate had been cut for him. I've not read about that anywhere else.
Yeah.
And there's little about his visit that I've seen, actually. But yeah, maybe we need to have a better search in the older newspapers for that. At least we know the year he visited now. Maybe we'll be able to find something. And yeah, she inspected a cake which had been specially made for the occasion, and it had a design of Bishop Gundulph on the top, which is great. And also there's a plaque on the wall in there somewhere in the foyer to commemorate her visit. So hopefully that's still there. So it's really interesting. This would have been a big party with people sharing their joy in her visit of the anniversary, and big flower displays in the chapel. And it spoke about, you touched on it, about the League of Friends being really involved as well. And the League of Friends really kind of started at St. Bartholomew's Hospital and then All Saints, and it was very small. It's just a few people, and so it's amazing to see now, many years later, what it does to support Medway Hospital with their little shop, and just the amount of volunteers that they have is really incredible. So it's almost like that kind of community spirit of St. Bart's is there within the Medway Friends.
Yeah, which has continued on. Yeah, definitely, and for the foreseeable future, we can hope. because they do some, they do some really fantastic stuff. To be fair, it would be really interesting as well for anyone that was part of the original St. Bart's Friends group. I'm not sure if we've heard much from former members of the league group, but if anyone was part of it, then do get in touch, because we'd love to hear about, particularly if you were involved in staging all the 900th anniversary celebrations. That would be absolutely fantastic to maybe even get some photos if you potentially have some, maybe in a loft up somewhere. So definitely try and get in touch. We're really looking forward to hearing from just the experience of it at the time.
Dig out your photos, please. Do go into your loft. And I do have an audio recording of somebody that was there for the do. So I will play that for us to have a listen to. Let's have a little photo of Princess Alexandra in the process.
We actually attended the 900th year celebration of it being a hospital in 1978. We were little students, so we had our uniforms on and our capes and our little cardboard hats, and we trucked off to Rochester Cathedral for the and Princess Alexandra came to that. So that's as far as my history goes. It's 900 years old, so oldest hospital in the country.
There we go. Yeah, so they had all their little hat on. She said described them as being cardboard kind of hat.
Yeah.
That was from Linda Pearson, who we're very grateful for telling us more about her time at St. Bart's, and definitely over the coming months we'll share more little clips from the voice recording and make sure that's accessible to the archives as well for people to listen to about her time working at St. Bart's.
Definitely, yeah. And I think something that was really nice, let me just share that, was at the time when they did the celebrations in 1978, it was really nice, and I think it really links into our project today, was just how they really recognized this 900-year history as something really special for the entire Medway area, and even nationally, because it is Britain's oldest surviving hospital building to this very day. And there we go, and they even said, and the sense of tradition and links with the past will never be severed. So it goes to show that there's that appreciation for its role over those 900 plus years in operation. And despite, yes, unfortunately, from the 90s and early 2000s, some staff began to transfer over as part of the restructuring locally for the healthcare system, and some health services being moved over to Medway Maritime. I think despite that, there was always that strong sense of I guess we could call it St. Bart's spirit. I think that's something in its own right.
Yeah, definitely from the stories we've heard. Yeah, definitely. And it's nice that they felt that, I mean, they probably knew in the 70s that building was getting old, didn't they?
There were some contributions on Facebook from former staff members who said even around the 70s, 80s, and particularly the 90s, when some services began to move over, quite a few of the buildings internally becoming really dilapidated, unfortunately. And I guess that's kind of like a sad echo to previous decades, when charitable donations were running low at some points, particularly the medieval structure, and it was quite a challenge to keep things going. But nonetheless, things did move, keep going until 2016. So, and I think as well with the previous session that we looked at the future of St. Bart's, it'll be really, the developers have really taken the time to appreciate its role and its history in the creation of the new residential community. And I think they're restoring the best of what was there, all the sort of unsightly additions and extensions that really didn't, I think, mean much in terms of its heritage value are going. But particularly with the retention of the mortuary, the original waterworks building, and turning that into a community space would really, I think, so to say, make St. Bart's heart beat again, so to say, and revive that life into it.
Especially because we've lost All Saints. Like there's only the one singular building left of All Saints, and it was of a similar, well, it was a workhouse before that, wasn't it? I can't remember how old that building was, but I can't imagine it being much older than St Bart's, and long gone, and that was a beautiful estate. If you think of what could have been done with that, that could have been like our grand stately home of Chatham. That could have, couldn't it? You know, with all the grounds. God. So it's quite interesting. You know, it's really great that we've still got that, and obviously we've still got our naval hospital. You know, it is a lot of really old buildings, and we know that, like, in the future there's going to have to be new hospital buildings that are more modern, because you know, a lot of those buildings really are very old. But I'm just so thankful that we do live in a time where you know, buildings are listed, and in Medway we do take that quite seriously as well. There's not we do really try to make sure that those buildings are protected, and I'm really glad that we were talking about it yesterday, about the heritage action zone, and kind of making sure that actually not only are those buildings protected, but that they also don't just sit there and rot, you know, because they're listed, but actually they're celebrated and used.
Yeah, because that's the thing as well with a lot of this type of buildings. You know, unfortunately times do change. You know, we move forward, and unfortunately, you know, their original use isn't. I mean, like with the waterworks, for example, I wouldn't think that we'd have a waterworks in the mortuary again. But, you know, of course, it's better to retain it and change, you know, flexibly for something else. And I think particularly now it's, you know, it's proposed use, you know, to be a community centre by, they said about 2023, it should open to the public. That's going to be something that's publicly, you know, accessible to the public, to the people of Medway. Previously it hadn't been. Previously it had been a hospital site where you'd have to have a reason to go there.
You'd have to be dead, actually, George. You'd have to be dead. That'd be your reason.
Yeah, you have to be dead to go downstairs in the mortuary. So I think I think it's really good that finally we are going to see it restored. I mean, who knows? I mean, in St Bart's with a new flat, we might have friends that move into there.
Yeah, exactly.
To get an invite over.
Exactly, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind.
And all the neighbours.
Yeah, have a snoop around there. Yeah, so I think that's really lovely. Yeah,
it'd be really good. Well, I think that kind of brings us to a close around the 900-year anniversary, and you know, that's 2016 was the last time that it was an active hospital. And I didn't touch on how the reason that it was Princess Alexandra that visited is because she's a patron of the Florence Nightingale Foundation, and she has been since 1957. So it's very appropriate that she was the one that visited St Bart's, and she's very heavily involved in St Christopher's Hospice, which is an incredible hospice in London, and also Queen Alexandra's Royal Navy Nursing Service, Mind, and the Mental Health Foundation. So all of her work is around health. So that's why. So mental health, palliative care, and international aid remain close to this day to the princess's heart. So as much as I'm sure everyone would have loved the Queen to have visited, she was actually the more appropriate person to visit the hospital. And I believe the Queen did visit during the war years, but didn't come to St Bart. She only went to Fort Pitt.
Right. So she
didn't make it over.
Across the road.
She could see it, she didn't go in it. Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah. So a review of the week.
Yeah, so the past week's been really interesting. We've on the Monday in our first session, which is already live on YouTube, we started looking at, you know, just the beginnings of it, essentially how it, you know, opened in 1078, and then of course the new road building in Rochester that we see today, and with scaffolding all up now, and that opened later on in 1863. So
we found an interesting point about that later in the week as well, didn't we? That apparently originally there was another site somewhere that had been proposed for building the newer hospital, but it was considered too close within the fire field of Fort Pitt. But no idea where that was, whether it was just, maybe it was just over the road, or but it was too close. So we'd have to know where the perimeter was for being the fire field for Fort Pitt to know what made it. Because I would say you'd think that where it is now is still too close, but obviously not for whatever reason. So yeah, thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it was quite interesting, and we heard and we learned, I think, a lot about sort of funding and how it survived financially over the years, and all the change in ownership and whatnot over the years as well, and all the problems it had with the who was it? It was the dean, I think, of Rochester, where the money was going into the wrong hands.
Yeah,
say that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there were a
Talking
lot
of hands, we also found out about Bartholomew's missing arm as well.
Yes.
He makes an appearance in a lot of our videos that you'll find on YouTube. The arm remains unfound, but is in our YouTube videos.
Yeah, so we found it. It's on YouTube.
Yes, you'll have to watch the videos to find his arm.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, so Monday was really interesting, like getting the basis of the hospital and understanding where it all started, because it is, of course, we keep on talking about its importance, but it's really good to find out, where it started. On the Tuesday, in the second session, which is also already up on YouTube, Natasha took us through all the meals and medicines that were part and parcel of the experience as a Bart's patient. She took us through a really easy to follow recipe as well for some tasty food. I think it's
Flaco, type of flan cake lasagna.
It's interesting. So she took us through that and talked about some of the medicines and sort of natural vegetation that was part of the treatment for the poor and the poorly, and also the sick of Medway. So that was really insightful, because I at least personally didn't really know much about the medicine, but it's really interesting to see through a Natasha session just how far medicine and treatment's come. Definitely, and I think especially now with the pandemic, we've seen how quickly these sort of medicine, treatments and vaccinations could all be produced for the better good, for the wider good. So that was really insightful.
Yeah, I think it is so, to look at how far we've come in terms of antibiotics and vaccination. St Bartholomew's has been there through that whole
at the forefront
process. Through the whole process of medicine, which leads us nicely onto what we spoke about on Wednesday with the Lock Hospital, because they secured funding from the government to be able to open this hospital on the basis that it would provide 30 beds for women that were ill with syphilis, but also there was kind of a spanner thrown in the works, because when they secured that money, women would go there on a voluntary basis. By the time that they opened the ward, they had to go. Once they'd been instructed, that was it, and they couldn't leave. And it turned out that these women were being nutritionally starved, essentially. So although they weren't starving, they were going mad from not having enough food. Their body was telling them that something was seriously wrong, which meant that they were smashing up the hospital. And to go from that, and that was all because of the Contagious Diseases Act, and then those women then went to All Saints, and that ward was empty for some time, you found out, didn't you?
It did stay empty for quite a while, and then they repurposed it for other reasons. And it's I think what was quite interesting is the way in which the whole strategy kind of didn't really go to plan. I think it was quite controversial, and obviously even now when we look back on it, we'd say that's a bit of a crazy idea, but it was
the best they had at the time. They honestly thought that changing, like having a restrictive diet, helped dermatology. That was just their belief of all skin issues, and because the main disease was syphilis and that was skin ulcerations, they felt that was the way to do it. And what was really good is that as we went through the week, we spoke about how public health were based at the hospital, and they were responsible for actual real game changers within sexual health education, and so really at the forefront in the end in the country of the way that they were helping people. So that was so interesting.
Yeah, it was really innovative, and of course some of the innovations may have been controversial, such as the lock ward. It was still one of the first, one of a kind for the country, not even just for Medway, but nationally. So
yeah, they would have seen it as saving women's life at the time, wouldn't they? And I know that it was more around men not contracting like syphilis, and so the idea was to keep men being able to you know, a bit, maintain service in the army mainly. But generally legally it was also seen that it was preventing these women die a horrible death. So it was just that was the only treatment they knew of at the time.
Yeah. And then, as Natasha said, from there, we did talk about the lock ward and the innovations. Particularly on Friday, we spoke about the wards, but on the Wednesday, we also spoke about all the ghost sightings of the hospital.
Oh yeah,
and that was quite and still is a really hot topic that people love to talk about. And particularly from the staff members, they've had a lot of accounts that they've shared with us. From there was that interesting one, where one of the staff members' husband, he felt like he was being operated on whilst he was sleeping on one of the hospital beds. So it seems like St. Bart's has definitely got St. Bart still lingering around in there.
And your one about Gandalf as well.
Yeah, that one was really odd as well, where one of the staff members saw Gandalf, walk around in the corridors, and by the time she'd approached him, he'd already just vanished. So
it happened more than once, and that it was known that he seemed to be wandering that ward.
So there were so many, that seems like it's part of the spirit of St. Bart's as well, not just the community spirit, but also the ghost spirit, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was really interesting, and that nicely flowed on to Thursday, where Natasha led the creative responses call out. So we're definitely hoping to see more sort of creative responses, particularly from all these ghost stories. And yes, Natasha's got her jar there.
Yeah, little jar. You can go. That'll be on YouTube as well soon. Be able to catch up. If not, you can catch up at the moment on the Future Chatham page.
Yeah. So it'd be really nice to see your creations over. Like of that, but I mean, particularly we'd love to see all sorts of different creations, even if it's it could be textiles, patchwork, paintings, acrylics, graphic design, even visual media if you want to. There's so much that you can be inspired from, and I think if there's a lot of stories that we've shared and maybe just snippets of information, such as the flower design of St. Bart's, which is really distinct. I think that would be really lovely to even see as a like a concrete maybe plant pot, for example, like an imprint. There's so much that could be done,
definitely,
and inspired, creatively from St. Bart's. So definitely have a go. Try and come up with anything as wild as it can be, and it'll be really interesting to see what you come up with. And then on Friday, on the Friday session, we looked at the wards inside, what was arranged where, and also we did ask for some help because we of course don't know what to wear either. So we tried our best, and a lot of help from former staff. We did pinpoint what was where, and that was really interesting. And also looking at the mortuary building and how it was originally actually a waterworks, and it wasn't until 1930s roughly when it actually became part of the hospital building and hospital site, where it became a mortuary for the people of Medway. So
the most interesting mortuary in the country, most likely.
With its castle appearance. If you haven't seen it, then we've already shared some photos, but we'll definitely keep sharing them out.
That's like got to be one of the favourites, isn't it?
So, it looks really interesting, and we've heard from a lot of people that work there as well, particularly in the early 2000s, how they worked in the first floor of it for the public health team that Natasha touched on a little while ago. So Friday was really interesting to get a good grasp, I guess, of
and that mural.
Oh yeah, and the murals inside.
Gosh.
Yeah, they were really
show it
good.
Again, because it is just incredible, isn't it?
And we also mentioned how unfortunately one of those murals inside were actually stolen between 2017 and 19. Yeah, there we go. Isn't that beautiful?
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, definitely needs a bit of restoration work, but you get the gist of it.
It definitely only happened. The more I looked at videos of people exploring the hospital, it's definitely, unfortunately, only happened this damage here. has only happened in the last few years.
More recent times,
Yeah. I mean, it might have not been deliberate. It might have genuinely just got damp and then kind of fallen down. I wouldn't say that necessarily looks like that's deliberate. So
Yeah,
that line there might be, oh no, because that's where the wood is.
Yeah,
but absolutely incredible. And the metal stairways as well.
Yeah, it was certainly really interesting. Yeah, all the sort of internal architecture, because we're looking at, you know, from the outside, but inside there's so much to it as well, which is really interesting. Yeah, and I think that was quite nice to see as well. And on Friday, and on the following day, on Saturday, yesterday actually, we particularly spoke about the future of the hospital, how it's going to look, and all the sort of plans now, considering it closed in 2016. Now it's being turned into a new residential community. So the main hospital building itself is going to be retained, as we discussed, and the mortuary being turned into a really nice community centre, which has seen that it's raked in a lot of interest so far from the local community. So it'll be really interesting to see how plans progress for that over the coming 2-3 years. So yeah, there we go. That's how it should look. It'll be really nicely restored. It's a shame that they haven't actually put in a clock tower, clock on the tower, which was meant to be there.
There was a story of the clock was supposed to have been paid for many, many years ago, and the money never got to where it was meant to be, and so there is no clock. There's just an archway. Very interesting.
But it will look really nice. And it'll be really interesting to see how it just, you know, once it is open, to have a roam around there between the public spaces inside, and particularly around the mortuary, where there's going to be a community garden and a pond as well. Considering there was originally a pond in the mortuary.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that'll be really nice to kind of, I suppose, feel, you know, St. Bart's Hospital as it may have been when it was first built in 1863. So yeah, those are some of the layouts internally for the new apartments. 1 and 2 bed apartments should be coming, as well as 1 to 3 bed houses along St. Bartholomew's Lane. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be really interesting to see how it all pans out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very exciting, and so nice to see that work is actually being done, because it was starting to become a concern, wasn't it, that it was just being left and all the windows are open, and it was just gonna, you know, a lot of those artifacts were going to get damaged. So I'm really glad. It also means it's more secure as well from people damaging it, so that people are on site.
Definitely. So the past week really has been really thought-provoking, not just informative, but really thought-provoking. And I think Natasha could agree that we've learned so much that we didn't know about the hospital. I certainly knew very little about it, actually. But I think we could definitely certify ourselves as mini St. Bart's experts.
Maybe, there's certain things now where I'm like, oh, okay, I can say that with confidence because it's been repeated enough, and that's what's been so helpful through this, is that you can always have people say, oh, I think this or I think that, and it's kind of word of mouth. But you know, we've gone back to like, well, what documents are available, and what people were working there. What do they call in studies, don't they? It's like first person accounts, and in archaeology you have like that whole kind of different layers of you know, first you got secondary information and first kind of point information, and we've had so many kind of actual one-to-one conversations with people, their eyewitness statements, and that's the most important ones you can have.
Definitely. So it's been really interesting, and we also really like to thank all the local people and former staff who really contributed and made this project as insightful as it can be, particularly for the recordings that we heard today and yesterday and the previous days as well, and on Facebook as well. All the comments that we've received has been really, it's just made it, I think, the whole St. Bart's story come to life, really, because we could read about as much as we want, but to actually hear from the people that were inside and were there for years on end working has been really, really, really nice. So
absolutely. And I'd like to thank, there's some people that I might not have got back to yet, but I'd like to thank Nikki Hansford for her information about her time staying at St Bart's, and Liz Wall for her account of also working there. Liz Ettridge, she was the lady that has provided one of her memoirs of time working at St Bart's. Also, we had a mysterious ledger sent in as well from that had been taken a photograph of in like it's just like a huge, it is at St Bart's ledger, and it was found in a house clearance. And that was Kay Whedon, and then Linda Blagden, who I need to get back to, who sent me email yesterday, and Linda Pearson, and Jane Redding. Yeah, thank you very much to all of your really just being so generous with your time in handing over that information. And also we'd like to thank Jeff Rambler as well, who's done incredible blogs, and for us really helped us build a foundation of where we were heading when we first started talking about doing this project. Jeff's blogs was the first place we kind of went, wasn't it, for trying to pull things together, and has extensive information actually on the blogs, and highly recommend you check those out. And he will in normal times also do walking tours as well.
Yeah, and we'd also particularly like to thank Medway Archive Centre based in Stroud. They've been absolutely phenomenal in providing us with so many of the old photos of the place, of St Bart's, and particularly of newspaper clippings, which have really provided us with a lot of information that was current at the time from the 1970s, particularly there of the 900th anniversary. So it's been really, really nice to get our hands on them. And we'd also like to thank Arena from Medway Libraries. She's been really, really helpful as well, pinpointing us to the right places to find out so much about St Bart's. So we'd like to thank her as well. Any more thanks? I think, so many.
Well, thank you to the Cultural Consortium for
absolutely
giving us this project.
Definitely, yeah.
One of the lucky six.
Yes, we are. And definitely head over to the Medway Council website to check out the Heritage Action Zone. There's so many other projects as well that are going on at the moment, all sorts. Ali's project in particular with the poetry walk, but also the Cathedral of Community being led by Hannah. So yeah, there's so much to get involved with, I suppose, in the coming weeks.
And loads to come over the next few years.
Yeah, 3 years ahead for the project, so it'd be really interesting. And we'd also particularly like to, of course, thank Medway Council as a whole for their support leading the High Street Heritage Action Zone cultural programme, micro-commissioning us, as well as Historic England and the National Lottery Heritage Fund for providing us with the financial resources for this project, and as well as the support from Arts Council England. And I think, we'd absolutely love to hear more about.
This isn't where it ends.
Yeah, we like to hear more of your experiences and just your stories and memories from working or staying at St Bart's. So definitely get in touch, or if you know someone that has, please do get in touch, particularly with any old photos or maybe even videos if you have any from St Bart's. So do get in touch. You can get in touch by post to St Bart's Project to the Intra facility in High Street, Rochester, by email as well to stbartsproject@gmail.com, and by social media to Future Chatham on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And you can also find our St Bart's Project on Instagram as well now. So so many ways to get in touch. Do get in touch.
No excuses.
No excuses, absolutely. And so we've had, as Natasha already listed, so many stories from local people as well. So do get in touch, be part of that journey. Because we'd love to, essentially through this project, we're really wanting to create one of the largest, most comprehensive, but most of all, the most accessible resource about St Bart's and its history and the important role providing healthcare in Medway. So any of these stories we will be, with your permission, we will be sharing them with the Archive Centre, because I think it's really, we both feel it's really important, as do the council, to mark the legacy of St Bart's now that it becomes a community I guess, a new community for new residents. So yeah, there's definitely so many ways to get involved. And of course, you could also already go to our YouTube channel on St. Bartholomew's Hospital Project, and you can already start watching some of our videos on playback. We've already got the medieval beginnings video up, as well as Natasha's really fascinating medicine and meals video, where you can have a look and follow her recipe as well. So over the coming days, I suppose the plan is, over the coming days and weeks, we'll be posting more of the videos, the live talks, the virtual live talks that we've done here on Facebook. And of course, the Future Chatham website, the page dedicated to our project will be finalized. We'll put some of the photos up there wherever we can. And I think that really sums it up, I suppose.
And we're going to, straight after this, because we forgot, we're going to share the film about St. Bartholomew's from the Wellcome Collection, which you'll be able to watch as well for your nice Sunday afternoon, with music to your choice, because there is no sound.
I think that was filmed in 1930, if I'm not wrong, and that was commissioned by the Friends group, the League of Friends group for the St. Bart's Association, to raise funds for the hospital at the time. So I think it'd be really, it really is fascinating. And I think that's the thing with videos, you really do get to feel just the way, there we go, people walking about around the hospital and stuff, rather than just a static photos. So I think that's really, really nice. So we've also got a comment. Someone said about time, exciting times for Chatham and Rochester. Yeah, definitely we agree. It's really exciting times for the new life of St. Bart. So definitely stay tuned, I suppose, for more. And thank you as well to Linda Driver just for a comment now. She's found it very interesting and she can't wait to see more, and she's going to head over to YouTube to see our past videos. Fantastic.
Excellent.
On it like a car bonnet.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Amazing.
Fantastic. Right.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I think that brings our project, I guess the live part of our project to an end. But we're definitely, of course, only just beginning, hopefully.
It's just kickstarted us, isn't it?
Definitely. So thank you everyone for your support. Thank you to all the organisations and figures that have been part of this journey. And I suppose we'll, just hope that St. Bart's spirit stays around for many more years to come.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.